I'd like to call to order the October 9th, 2019 Chaska Planning Commission meeting. Liz, roll please.
Bovee?
Here.
Brass?
Here.
Cross?
Here.
Lacey?
Here.
Pfeiffer?
Here.
Seiler?
Here.
Olson?
Here.
Urbanski?
Here.
And Chairperson Dalkey.
The agenda. And I assume everyone's had a chance to look at our abbreviated agenda tonight.
Make a motion to adapt the agenda.
I'll second it.
First by Urbanski, second by Pfeiffer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is visitor presentation. Is there anybody who wants to speak that isn't on the agenda? And I don't see anybody here, so I maybe didn't even have to say that, but let's be official. So.
It's from the September 19th Planning Commission.
Second.
First by Seiler and second by Lacey. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Nothing on the consent agenda tonight. So let's go right into our actions for tonight. And our only action is 7.A, public hearing to recommend the approval of the zoning ordinance amendment to PRD 57 Brickyard Villas rear setback for the DDK construction, PC number 2019-18. Liz,
you.
it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the Planning Commission. Like Brian said, we have a zoning ordinance amendment tonight for the planned residential district, number 57, which also relates officially to ordinance number 833 with the city of Chaska. And it's specifically to amend the rear yard setback applicable to the lots 1 through 6 of Block 3 for the Klein Brickyard 13th edition. So to give you an idea of where these lots are located, they're highlighted in red on this aerial exhibit. The Brickyard Villas development is essentially on the east and west sides of Yellow Brick Road, just a little bit northeast of downtown Chaska. You have the Creek Run townhomes just easterly of the Brickyard Villas, and then additional multifamily development to the south of that. And then we have existing Brickyard Villas already constructed on Brickyard Drive, just northwest and westerly of this subject area. So these are the last remaining lots within the Brickyard Villas development. And so they're hoping tonight that the amendment will allow them to construct basically what's consistent over on the other side of the street. So in terms of a background for these parcels in particular, that the preliminary plat and rezoning were approved for the overall development. That's when ordinance number 833 was put into effect for planned for the PRD 57 zoning district. So during that time, it's just important to reference that the document that was used as part of the rezoning process was the preliminary plat for the Klein Brickyard 5th. So when we reference between the Klein Brickyard 5th and the Klein Brickyard 13th, there's still consistency there. The legal descriptions are just a little bit different now that the 13th edition is in place. So the zoning that's out there under ordinance number 833 will still continue to use that original preliminary plat document that it was referencing to during that time. So just want to kind of clarify that even though we're the rezoning document is still referring to the Klein Brickyard 5th, it still ultimately refers to the Brickyard 13th edition, lots 1 through 6, block 3, that we're talking about. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to go over it. It just gets confusing when you start to add on plats out there. They start to accumulate as they phase things in. And then it was in March of 2014 that the final plat for the Klein Brickyard 13th edition was approved. And that's where the 6 vacant lots that we're looking at tonight were ultimately platted out there. So when that final plat came in, some construction plans and site plans were provided as a part of those approvals. And the site plans for these 6 lots did show a 20-foot rear setback on all of those documents. We believe to understand that the rear yard setback that was applied out there just never got codified into the rezoning that occurred with the Brickyard villas. So hence why we're coming back today to do an ordinance amendment to include the 20-foot rear setback for these lots in particular. And it's also important to note that these lots are a lot less steep compared to the other Brickyard villa lots. And I'll show an exhibit kind of showing the difference in that. So having them meet a 30-foot rear yard setback would essentially shrink down the building pad. That would be less consistent with what the other Brickyard villa detached units are like. So allowing the 20-foot rear yard setback would essentially allow them to either do a 3-stall garage option with no 4-season porch, or they could do a 2-stall garage option with a 4-season porch on the rear side. So this is consistent with the other units that are on the west side of Yellow Brick Road, the other Brickyard villa detached units. I just want to include these documents in the event that we need to refer back to it. So this is the pre-plat document for the Klein Brickyard 5th edition that was approved with the rezoning done in 2009. So Outlot C of the Klein Brickyard 5th edition preliminary plat is what's referenced in Ordinance 833, as well as these other subsequent lots as well, in terms of how the development standards kind of get put in place. So this document is still going to carry through with the zoning ordinance amendment tonight, as that was the original document put in place for the rezoning, so that it remains consistent through the document. And then the other document is the Klein Brickyard 13th edition final plat, so in the event that we need to refer back to this, we can. But this essentially shows the 6 lots that were platted during that time and the 6 remaining lots that need to be developed on. I've also included a snippet of one of the 2014 approved plans with the final plat of the 13th edition, just to show where that 20-foot rear setback is being shown, and this is consistent throughout all the site plan and construction documents. And these were approved with the final plat of the 13th edition, so it's not like they're coming in with a whole new concept. It's something that was approved as a part of the original approvals for these lots. These are showing a 20-foot rear setback with those units applied there.
Is that, can I just ask a question?
Yep.
So where you have that, where it says 20-foot rear setback?
Yep.
Did you add that to show us?
Yes, I
Okay.
did.
So I'm trying to understand where on the original document it shows that the 20 feet rear setback was approved.
Well, the scale even shows it itself. So with the scale applied to that, they're showing 20 feet off of that.
So
Rear lot
like
line.
that space in there.
Yes, this right here is 20 feet measured. That's how they've scaled the drawings.
Okay.
So again, the zoning ordinance amendment tonight that we are doing is specifically to ordinance number 833, which is the planned residential district number 57. And this ordinance amendment is purely to amend the rear setback solely for lots 1 through 6, block 3, the Klein Brickyard 13th edition, also known as Outlot C of the Klein Brickyard 5th preliminary plat. So in the ordinance document, Outlot C, Klein Brickyard 5th is what's going to be referenced, since that was the original document referenced with the rezoning. So we're going to carry that through, but it's still essentially the same as lots 1 through 6, block 3 of the Klein Brickyard 13th. So they're the same thing. Just want to make sure that's clear. So that'll be amended from a 30-foot rear setback to a 20-foot rear setback for both the home and the decks that are on those lots. So that's essentially the rear yard setback that's put in place for those remaining lots. So this setback is not going to be for the existing villas and detached units already constructed. It's purely just for these last remaining lots. And then just included this exhibit kind of laying out how their unit would fit within the setback requirements with the 20-foot rear yard setback applied. So in this example, they're showing the 2-stall garage option with a 4-season porch on the rear being able to be accommodated with the setbacks applied. And this is just an aerial showing kind of how it references in real life. They also plan to install evergreen trees along the rear lot line here that directly abuts the Creek Run townhomes on the western side there. So it would help kind of provide a buffer between the different units there. So with that, we are asking you to make a motion tonight to recommend approval of the zoning ordinance amendment to PRD 57, specifically ordinance number 833, based on the draft ordinance that was provided in your packet tonight. I'm happy to answer any other questions. We do have the applicant here too, so if you have questions for them, they'd be happy to oblige.
Anyone?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the
We can't do it quite
Yeah.
yet.
It's a public hearing.
public hearing.
Well, actually, one question that I had
Yes.
is the lots on the, I guess,
Townhouses.
to the right as we're looking at them,
Yep.
where the big ditch is. Is we doing anything with that, or with that ditch?
Over here?
Yeah, it'd be, yeah, exactly.
Not at this time. It's a city-owned land, so I believe it's actually preserved as open space.
Okay.
It's supposed to be utilized as
And that's
that.
why we don't need to put trees
No.
Back there?
Yeah.
on there too.
It's,
We may well put trees along the whole length.
you want to come up to
Yeah,
the,
so I know it shows, the approved plan basically has the first, like 180 feet roughly. We may well extend them all the way along. That actual property, at one time, the developer owned all of this land, the apartment site and all. And so as we platted it, and if you saw that very first plat that was up, this lot where the 6 was created back 8 years ago, before the apartments went in. So we intentionally dedicated that land to the city. That, we gave it to them. One of the approvals, part of the approvals of these 6 is it gave us the permission to go onto the city land and grade, because it was kind of a no man's area in there. So our intent is to go and restore it back again. And the discussion we've had with the apartment owner is that their preference is that we grass it. So the trees will be on the backyard of our property. There'll be this grass swale.
Right.
And then everything to the north will be untouched.
Very good. Okay, since this is a zoning, variance is being requested, we are required to have a public hearing, so I'm going to call the public hearing at 7:14. Since no one's here. Dave, I assume you don't need to talk anymore or have anything else? Then I'm going to also close the public hearing at 7:14 and bring it back to the commission.
I have a comment. Okay. And it follows up on your comment about the grading and so forth. The townhouses to the east have an extremely steep grade into a ditch, which is on the now city land. And it shows up on our aerial here that 3 very large cottonwoods were laid down and now are chewed up. They're now not chewed up, excuse me, hunked up and shoved onto the city land at the north edge. And this, when you say leave it, go back to nature, well, it isn't really nature when you have big piles of big logs in the corner, and that I consider a problem. And the other minor thing, and I'm not saying we change anything, because we can't, because this is already approved and everything, but it's a reminder to the new people on the commission that on a collector type road, I don't know if it's officially called a collector, but it definitely is collects a lot. We discourage having individual driveways, and the fact that they put 2 houses on one driveway is nice. It's much nicer than 6 driveways, but there are 3 driveways that go directly onto the collector, and that's something we, as a commission and as of a city, discourage. The way the apartments and, I mean, the townhouses and so forth all gather up and have one connection is the ideal. And that's my only comment, because as I say, we can't change anything, but I really want them to be very careful what trees you put in at the back, because already there's a pool of water at the upper end because of how the runoff is, and there will be some evergreens that will not tolerate that moisture. That's my end of my comment.
All right, very good. Anyone else?
No, I'll just mention, though, that I agree with Commissioner Cross on that. You know, if you just bring up the whole road on Google Maps, that was one of the first things I noticed, is there's no other driveways that go onto the yellow brick road. So, you know, point well taken.
Well, just, so you look, I want to correct you, but this actually is not a collector street. It is kind of well, it's an apartment street. That's
Yes.
the original design.
Yeah.
And you're right. So each of the apartments all have 2 driveways. They're all set up that way. And originally, that's how this was set up. So this was supposed to be where the townhouses are. That was supposed to be, well, I don't know, supposed to be. It was originally planned for 100 and some unit apartment building. And then that changed back a number of years ago. So you're right. Had this site could have been a 16-unit apartment, we would have had 2 driveways. What we're having is 3. And one of the reasons why we really felt strongly about allowing us to continue to build this same unit is the side-loaded garages, because then nobody ever backs out into this road. So the history of this probably, had it been perfect, there would have been just true driveways, access driveways, rather than private driveways on the road. And relative to the trees, the dead trees that are back there, again, I don't want to be defensive. It's not us, that's the city. We are going to take care of them. We've actually already talked with Brian about getting rid of them because we don't like the looks of them back there. There's a fair amount of dead trees.
Oh, yes.
And we plan on going back in and working with Brian and clearing out a fair amount of them before we build. Because once you build, then it's really hard to get back in there. Now, quite frankly, it's easy.
Yeah, it's just that when you do build, you change where the water goes, and that's why you get more dead trees.
Fair. That's exactly right. Yep.
Thank you, sir. Any more comment? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Ready?
Try it again.
It's your turn.
I'll make a motion to accept the ordinance change here from a 30-foot setback to a 20-foot setback.
Okay, Liz, do we need to read the,
I would read the specific,
can you,
way it's
Scrolling back to,
right here for you if you like.
motion to recommend approval to the city council of the zoning ordinance amendment to ordinance number 833, PRD 57, amending the rear setback from 30 feet to 20 feet for lots 1 through 6, block 3, declined Brickyard 13th edition, also known as Outlot C, declined Brickyard 5th edition preliminary plat.
do we have a motion by Urbanski?
I'll second.
Second by Seiler. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, let's move on to item 8 on the agenda, which is just to receive in the minutes of the September 16th, 2019 City Council meeting, which we have done. So next up, let's have a short roundtable. Go ahead, Commissioner Bowe, you can start, if you have anything.
No, I don't have anything.
I guess the big news is Dunkin' Donuts finally opened.
Had my first one today.
Did you? All right. That's all I have.
Yeah.
Nothing for me. I am curious, what other businesses are going in those other buildings?
In the other buildings, so AT&T is going in the corner building of Walnut and Highway 41, and then the multi-tenant building, Fitness First is going in there, the refinery is going in there, and then I believe 1 more or 2 more spaces are still available for lease.
I'm sorry, Liz, what was the second?
The refinery, I believe they're...
It's a little boutique.
Yeah, like a
downtown.
little boutique vintage store.
And the AT&T is a store?
Just moving.
right
Yes,
there.
yeah.
Cool.
Like if
Same
you have an
thing with Fitness
AT&T
First. I think
phone,
they're already
you
on
can
top.
It
get
certainly looks
service.
better than that old gas station that was there.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
much improved.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Very good. Commissioner Cross?
Do we know if with this change at Lyman and 41, are they going to actually cross the ravine that is what is projected? Do we know if it's
To
going
80s, or...
to 82nd Street?
82nd. I don't know where they're at in the plans of that. They already have right-of-way platted for it to extend right now, the county does. But I don't know where they're at in terms of a development plan on getting that situated, so.
The reason why I ask is the great big traffic study and access study on 41, Bavaria, and 82nd Street. And I'm just hoping that might happen since, as you say, we have, the property is already there.
Yep. It's
It's
really
a-
the county's move on that in terms of if they're ready to start implementing it. I think it's always been a budgetary thing, hence why it hasn't been progressing. So I don't know if it's going to be up there on their priority list with other things.
Well, all they're going to do on 5, making it a 4-lane and so forth, it's a big budgetary event.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Seiler, anything?
I don't have anything.
All right. Commissioner Brass?
Yeah, I got something completely random. think coming up from the stairs and like in here and the whole common area, like this whole area could really use some fresh carpet. I mean, I'm looking at the pictures, I think it's the same carpet from like 50 years ago or something. Like, honestly, I'm like going, you know, you got like the wear patterns.
Well, I know this
mean, it's
building
so
wasn't
bad.
here 50
Well, you
years
know, I mean, but I just, you know, maybe because I work in that kind of arena, or you do like improvements every so often, and like maybe you could pass along a note to city council, put in the budget, like
Trust
freshen
me,
up the area.
that's not a new topic here.
Oh, is it? Okay.
No, I mean,
going on
not
for 50
necessarily
years
the
they've been
carpet,
talking about it.
but I don't
mean,
disagree
it's
with you.
getting down to like the wear areas. You're gonna see concrete coming through soon.
We're very much stuck in the 90s right now. But
Put some
I
golf
know
balls up here.
there's been an engagement committee here at City Hall who's already kind of made a list of things, at least within the building, that needs work. I don't know if it's not really cosmetic work, that's the priority right now, but we do have a bunch of things that need to get upgraded to have this be a working, sound building.
It shows our fiscal responsibility.
Trust me, it's something that's on our agenda.
Mm-hmm.
We're hoping it can still progress forward. So we'll see what happens with that.
2 more years, we can sell this in a vintage store and make money.
Yeah.
We'll
That's
go
my
with
random comment for the night.
Commissioner Pfeiffer?
I don't have anything.
All right.
Same nothing.
And all I have is, I think, yesterday, for the first time in at least a year, there's no road closed signs or orange barrels or yellow flags at 41 and Pioneer Trail, and it looks great.
Yep.
People are still gonna try to be goofy at the quick trip there, but at least they now have to drive over a curb if they wanna do it. So, it looks great there now.
Good.
So that's all I have.
All right. I just have the one point to make for next week. So October 16th, we're doing our city bus tour. We're going to make a couple stops at some completed projects that we approved through the city level that you guys were involved with, or most of you have been involved with. And we'll also have a couple tours set up for some of those buildings that
great.
were completed. So right now we have Lake Jonathan Flats and Formicote on the agenda for tours, and then we'll have a couple
Great.
other in-between spots as well that we've worked on. So just want to make sure people are aware that the Planning Commission will be involved in that next
Very
week.
good. And we're meeting here.
Yep, meet here in the City Hall parking lot at 5:30. If you're able to come a little bit early, that's preferred, just so we can get on board, get you all set up with the materials, and then be on our way, because we'll have a pretty constrained time window with the daylight, so the earlier, the better.
Well, it should be interesting. Looking forward to it.
Well, with how fast Flexible Products is building their building, you could probably tour that thing and be done.
Oh, yeah, for sure,
I couldn't believe it.
yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Got the panels up, everything. It's
Yep.
All right, can we have a motion to adjourn?
I so moved that we adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Cross, a second.
I'll second.
Commissioner Olson, all in favor?
Hi.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you, everyone.